The Soft Serve Podcast.
Creamy, delicious ideas without the creepy truck.
Oh yeah, baby. No creepy trucks here. No more Absolute Zero theme music anymore. I think I'm done with all of that. We'll see. It's just going to be me. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Soft Serve Podcast. I am your host, Sawtooth Frank. On the show this week, I'm going to ask you the question and try to answer it. Are some people invisible to wasps? Specifically, ground nesting wasps. And by some people, I mean me. Am I invisible to wasps? I have a theory. And I think I have an answer to this question. And so we're going to explore that in this episode. How's that sound? But first, let's do a little bit of show news. So, as you may have already gathered if you're a longtime listener of the show, I'm changing some things up structurally. So, the very first thing I am doing, and now this isn't exactly a revelation, I'm going to put the disclaimer at the end of the podcast episode. Why am I doing that? There's somebody a friend of mine who listens to the show, who told me that they skip right over the beginning of the show. They don't even listen to the disclaimer. So I thought to myself, that's interesting. I wonder how many other people hear that disclaimer and maybe just tune out or skip over it altogether and maybe miss other parts of the show because they're skipping. We don't want people skipping. So I'm getting rid of the disclaimer and all of the intro talk and the intro babble because I don't have a co-host anymore. It's just me now. It's just your old pal Sawtooth. So we don't need it. I don't need to sit there and talk to myself in a verbally masturbatory manner about what's going to be on the show. I should just do the show. Right? Just do the fucking show. So I'm moving the disclaimer. It's gone. It's going to be at the end. You don't even have to listen to it if you don't want to. It's going to be the very last thing. Now, of course, moving the disclaimer to the end means I have to wait longer to get the fuck off of these microphones when I'm done with the show. But that's my problem. It's not your problem. I won't get angry at you for that. Okay? I'll be angry with myself. Angry with myself like I usually am. Okay? The other thing I'm doing is I'm working on a shorter intro song. Not that the intro song I have now is particularly long. It's not. But I'm going to try to make a shorter one. So we'll see if we even do that. Okay? And let's see. The other little bit of show news I have for you is I have done some corresponding with a potential guest about doing the death episode. The long, rumored, and awaited death episode. And the person I was corresponding with about this even showed me a picture of the microphone they intend to use. It looked fine to me. So if we can get our schedules together, we may have the first guest on the Soft Serve podcast in years. And we'll be talking about death. So that might be an upcoming show. Okay? That's the show news. Now, in other news, I just want to mention, I'm recording this on Monday evening, July 6th, 2026. So the 4th of July happened a couple days ago. Two days ago, I can count. And I have to say, I did nothing for the 4th of July. I did not celebrate. I didn't go see fireworks. I did not go to Washington, D.C. to attend the Freedom 250 celebrations that Donald Trump was hosting. And you know what? It was fucking awesome. I hate celebrating the 4th of July. I hate it. The 4th of July is the worst holiday ever. And I say this as a veteran of the United States Army. I do not like the 4th of July. I think that a lot of the celebrations about the 4th of July are phony. People run around talking about how patriotic they feel, how much they love this country, yet they don't get involved in government. They don't serve their country. They don't vote. They don't speak up against the government, Democrat or Republican, when we have politicians stealing from us and taking advantage of the system and building a oligarchy. That's government by and for the rich. And I see most people supporting all of that. And I say to myself, you motherfuckers, the most patriotic thing you can do is to speak out against your country, is to fight against the people who would steal from their citizens. Anyways, I did not celebrate the 4th of July. I am proud of it. And if you don't like it, fuck you. I don't care. I get to not celebrate the 4th of July if I don't want to. Okay? I've earned it. All right. And look, if you like celebrating the 4th of July, there's a lot to like about it. I know that. Okay? People get together. They have barbecues. Family comes over. They get drunk. They fight. They throw handfuls of egg salad and coleslaw at each other. Grandpa or grandma chokes on the potato salad because they didn't chew it enough, or they don't have the teeth to chew it. Lots of fun stuff happens on the 4th of July. Your uncles get drunk and start throwing fists over the picnic table. Somebody falls on the ground and twists their ankle and bumps into Aunt Bethel sitting in her chair and knocks her out of the chair. She falls. She spills her giant tumbler of wine. That lands on the dog. The dog gets wine in its eyes and goes berserk. It starts biting people. Then you end up getting sued because your dog, because it had wine in its eyes, bit somebody. It's a mess. It's a messy good time, right? I started off by saying that I understand 4th of July is a good time. So if you enjoy it, okay? Let me not enjoy it. That's all I'm trying to say to you. I don't care if you enjoy it. Don't care if I don't enjoy it. Okay? That'll be our contract. My dear listener, we will not care what each other think. We won't get offended. Okay? If I find out you like the 4th of July and you celebrate it, I won't get mad. Bless you. Go forth. Celebrate. But if you find out that I don't like the 4th of July, then just leave me the fuck alone. Okay? All right. All right, so let me take a sip of matcha tea here. This is green matcha tea that I've whisked up from a powder. Now, hold on one sec. I'm going to take a sip. That's tasty. Very earthy tasting. Kind of a grassy flavor to it. All right. Let's talk about ground nesting wasps. Okay? Now, I started off this episode by telling you that I believe that I am invisible to ground nesting wasps. And so I'm asking the question and have done some research. Can people be invisible to ground nesting wasps? So we're going to get into all that, but I think a natural place to start this is, what the fuck is a ground nesting wasp? Well, simply put, a ground nesting wasp is any kind of wasp species that builds its nest inside of the soil, okay, the ground, deep inside the ground, rather than hanging their nests from a tree or a building or inside of some other kind of cavity that's outside of the ground. We've all seen those paper wasp nests, right? Hanging from porches or under decks or in the branches of trees, right? We've all seen that. Well, that's not what a ground nesting wasp is. Ground nesting wasps, they build their homes inside of the earth. Pretty cool, right? And there are a couple kinds of ground nesting wasps. There's something called a solitary ground nesting wasp. Okay? And these are species that live by themselves. Right? So every female wasp digs out her own little burrow and she lives in there and maintains it. Now, because they live alone, they are generally not very aggressive. They very rarely sting people unless you try to pick one up or you trap it against the skin or something and it can't get away, right? So maybe you accidentally step on a solitary ground nesting wasp and it gets in between your foot and your flip-flop or your sandal, right? It might sting you then. But generally speaking, these solitary ground nesting wasps leave us the fuck alone, right? They don't care about us. Now, the other kind of ground nesting wasp that we need to talk about, and this is the problem. I mean, it's not a problem for me because I think I'm invisible to these things, are the social ground nesting wasps. Okay, now these are species of wasps that live in colonies with a queen and have hundreds and thousands of workers. They are very defensive of their nests and are responsible for most attacks on people. Now, when we think about these social ground nesting wasp, the species that I think is generally representative of this group is the Yellowjacket. And they are the primary ground nesters in North America. Now, they can also dig inside of wall voids if those voids tend to extend underground or are in a cooler area. So they can go inside of a wall, but Yellowjackets, these are the things we're talking about. So when we're talking about ground nesting wasps going forward, we're talking about Yellowjackets. Okay? And now, I told you now several times that I believe I am invisible to Yellowjackets. Why do I say this? Why would I say such a obviously crazy, insane thing? Now, before I tell you why I think I'm invisible to Yellowjackets, I do want to share that one of our listeners told me they were very disappointed in me that I believe that I see shadow people. They told me they think this is entirely a trick of my mind, and they thought I was a diehard atheist, and how can I possibly believe in the existence of shadow people? Now, I really haven't thought about how to respond to that, except to say I've seen what I've seen. And if it means that I have some sort of connection to the supernatural, so be it. And maybe that explains why I am invisible to Yellowjackets. Now, obviously I can't make any such claim like this without some sort of evidence or experience that would lead me to believe that I am invisible to Yellowjackets. Right? Right. So let me tell you about them. So just this past week, here in the Northeast where I live, in Massachusetts in particular, we were experiencing a heat wave. And it was like 100 degrees for a couple days in a row, and then 90 for a few more days. So I was outside doing a little work on my air conditioner. And specifically, I had noticed the insulating lines on the air conditioning suction tube were losing insulation. It was torn and not good for the efficiency of your central air conditioning unit. So I was fixing it, and that meant crawling around on the ground behind the central air conditioning unit. And so I'm down there on the ground. I'm taking off the old insulation off of the air conditioning line and putting on the new insulation. And I start noticing all of these Yellowjackets flying around me and thinking to myself, that's kind of weird. And I thought maybe that they were bees or something, because bees generally are not all that aggressive, because they were just flying by my head and going back and forth. And then I noticed right on the ground by one of my knees was a hole in the dirt. And the Yellowjackets were coming in and out of the hole. And they were treating me like I wasn't even there. Like I was just a tree or something. And now, mind you, I'm moving around. I'm sweating. My knees occasionally brushing over the entrance to their nest. My hands are waving around. I'm acting in a very unquiet manner. And anyways, they're just going about their business. Not a single one threatened me, landed on me, anything else. They just acted like I wasn't even there. So then that made me remember about 15 years ago, Stomping Jen.
I don't want to be an immortal lobster.
Was going out to a yoga class in the morning. And then she comes running back inside after leaving, like 10 seconds later, and says, I just got stung by a bee. I said, you got stung by a bee? And then I ran outside. And I didn't see any bees, but what I saw was a cloud of Yellowjackets, like flying around by the door. Now, none of these Yellowjackets were stinging me. They were just flying around me like I didn't exist. And then I noticed there was a Yellowjacket nest in the rock wall next to the door. And then I noticed there was another entrance to this nest in the foundation slab right under the door. And so, being a good partner, I got busy with doing everything I needed to do to remove the nest. And that meant getting a shovel, digging it up, plugging up the hole under the door. And not a single time in this process did I put on protective clothing and use poison or smoke. And not a single time did I get stung. It was like I was invisible to these Yellowjackets. It's just like they didn't see me as a threat in any way. It was the oddest thing. And I kind of at the time filed that away under, that's weird, so 15 years ago. And then this most recent thing happened out by the air conditioning unit, which has led me to the conclusion, my dear listeners, I am invisible to Yellowjackets. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're crazy. There's some other reason they didn't see you, or whatever. I don't know. But nothing about this makes sense to me except I am invisible to Yellowjackets. Now, I do want to point out, I am not invisible to other types of flying, stinging insects. I have been stung by paper nesting wasps, so wasps that build their nests in trees or under decks. I have been stung by bees. I've been stung by hornets. One time I rolled over on the ground when I was watching TV, and I rolled on top of a hornet, and it stung me in the ass. It was the most painful sting I've ever experienced in my life. So I got attacked by an entire nest of bees. So I have been stung by flying insects before, and am not claiming invisibility to non-ground nesting wasps, bees, and hornets. Before you think I'm totally crazy, I am only invisible to ground nesting wasps. Now, let's talk a little bit about why this could be, right? But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about how fucking dangerous these wasps are and why it's so impressive that I'm invisible to them. In the United States, insect stings, including wasps and yellowjackets, they kill 60 to 100 people a year, usually from anaphylaxis, so that's like an allergic reaction to the venom, but sometimes to the toxicity of the venom itself. So, like, somebody gets stung so many times, they get so much venom in their blood that they die, right? And like I said, yellowjackets are the major contributor to insect sting deaths because their nests, which are in the ground, remember, are very easily disturbed by people who are mowing grass, gardening, just out for a walk, which can trigger these mass stinging attacks. And multiple stings in a very short window of time, like I said before, can cause these toxic reactions to the venom, even without there being an allergic response. But this can require up to, dozens to hundreds of stings, which, if you're dealing with a very large nest of yellowjackets, isn't that unfathomable. You could get stung 100 times to 1,000 times. And like I said, that being said, the largest number of deaths from yellowjackets are concentrated amongst people who are allergic to wasp and bee venom, and they can't get to their EpiPens in time, or Benadryl, or what have you. So this is a serious problem. 100 people, people with friends and families, 100 people a year die from these horrible, horrible yellowjackets. So, how do these things operate, right? What is the basic biology of these little fuckers? Well, their colonies they're annual, meaning they set them up in the spring and then they die, right? And at the end of the season. So a single fertilized queen, she is the only one who survives from her colony, and she hangs out all winter long. That lucky little devil. And she comes out in the spring and she starts a nest. And she'll usually fly off to a new nest. So maybe in an abandoned rodent burrow, like a chipmunk, inside some other kind of soil cavity. So like in between some rocks, maybe down in the soil, or under structures, or, along the edges of a driveway, even. And the colony, right? So the queen starts the colony. She attracts some other wasps and yellowjackets, and the colony grows through the whole summer, and it peaks at around a couple thousand worker yellowjackets by the end of the summer. And that's why we usually see in the late summer the biggest spike in stinging incidents by yellowjackets. So, summer is fun, but it's also very dangerous, a very dangerous time for getting involved with these yellowjackets. And I don't need to point out to you, these yellowjackets, they kill more people a year than sharks. Yellowjackets, where is the movie about killer yellowjackets? It's not safe to go outside in the late summer. Do not go outside. And so at the end of summer, the colony, it begins to die off as fall and winter set in. And only, like I said, only the queen will survive to restart the cycle again. So, all right, now we understand a little bit how these fucking little evil ground sharks operate, these yellowjackets. But why do they attack people? That's a question. Why? Why do they attack people? Well, scientists will tell you, oh, it's not because they're mean. Wrong! Yellowjackets attack because wasps are fucking assholes. That's right. And scientists, they claim that wasps usually attack us because they perceive disturbances in their nest, usually by vibrations, right? So a person walking on top of the nest, or a lawn tractor coming across the top of the nest. So vibrations in the earth. They attack when they see rapid movement. So maybe kids running by or playing ball near the yellowjacket nest, or something like that. And they attack when they perceive predator-like behavior. So, if you are digging near a yellowjacket nest, for example, let's say you're just going out for a lovely day in the garden. It's the end of the summer. It's the beginning of September. You want to pick some flowers or harvest some tomatoes. And you're down there in the ground and you're weeding and turning over the soil with your hands and digging it up. And a yellowjacket sees you. It might think that you're a predator trying to dig up its nest and eat its queen. So what's it going to do? They're going to attack you because to a human being, a wasp looks like a hungry bear, a raccoon, a skunk, a fox, any kind of animal that digs into a nest. And how can a fucking wasp confuse a human being with a skunk? It makes no sense. I think they attack us because they hate us and they want us to die. That's what I think. They confuse us with a fox. Unlikely. Never seen a person that looked like a fox. Now, I have seen some people that look like bears. That's the truth. I'll admit that. All right, so we know that these yellowjackets, these ground nesting wasps, detect people by sensing vibrations in the ground. We talked about this already. So footsteps, lawnmowers, digging. They can also detect carbon dioxide, which is what we breathe out in our respiratory cycle, right? Sort of the same way a mosquito detects you when you're out in the yard or in the woods. We talked about this too. They can detect visual movement, and it's usually kind of like fast or sudden motion near the nest will trigger their attacks. And once they start attacking, the wasps, they release what's called an alarm pheromone, right? So it's a little chemical agent that tells all the other wasps, hey, we're under assault here. We need to rally the forces and we need to attack this thing that's near our nest. And scientists also believe that there could be a minor role that body heat, so like infrared cues, play in the wasps attacking human beings. So like they have heat vision, sort of. Not like lasers like Superman, not that kind of heat vision. Although imagine that. If there were fucking wasps flying around that could shoot lasers out of their eyes when they were mad. How terrible would that be? I shudder to think. But it wouldn't be a problem for me, right? Because I'm invisible to wasps. It's more of a problem for you, dear listener. But let's not even entertain that. So, I mean, here's the big question to science, and that science has not adequately answered, in my opinion. Can some people be invisible to ground wasps? Now, the scientists who I disagreed with before, who I now completely agree with, say the evidence says yes, it's a possibility. Some people can be invisible to ground wasps. Now, what does that mean exactly? Why could this be? Well, some people, like myself, who I will tell you, and I have told you, are invisible to ground wasps. They might walk more softly. That's me. I walk across and move through the world like a phantom. Like a loon gliding across a quiet Maine lake. I leave no wake behind me. I produce very few to no vibrations when I move. Whoops, I meant this one. I do not wear perfume. I like to wear very dark clothing instead of light clothing. I move slowly. If you listen to this podcast, you know I talk slowly. Imagine how slow I move. And I always position myself downwind so that the wind carries my scent away from wasps. Now, those are some of the behavioral things that I do that probably make me less noticeable to ground nesting wasps. Or invisible, not less noticeable, right? But there's some other things that the scientists who I now completely agree with say that could explain this phenomenon that I experience. People have different chemical compositions, right? So I am made of better stuff than you all, who are not invisible to ground nesting wasps. Different skin bacteria produce different odors, and some insects strongly prefer certain body odors. So all of you people who are not invisible to ground nesting wasps, you stink. You smell offensive to yellowjackets. That's why they attack you. I have skin bacteria that produces odors that yellowjackets find pleasing. Now, some people will say that whether any of these factors actually change whether or not yellowjackets will attack a person remains unproven. To those people, I say, fuck you, I know what I've experienced. I am invisible to yellowjackets. But I do think we need future research to discover if there are more special and wonderful people like me out there that make us less likely to be attacked by wasps. In other words, I need to be studied by science. I have a special power of invisibility to yellowjackets. Imagine what I could do for humanity. Imagine that I could save 100 lives a year if science studied me and cracked the mystery of my invisibility to yellowjackets. Think of that. I could be like the Schindler of people who are highly allergic to yellowjackets. 30 years from now, 40 years from now, after they study me and find out the secret to my yellowjacket invisibility, imagine me gathered at a picnic outside. Beautiful green rolling hills. And then all of the people I saved because I allowed myself to be studied by science and the secret to my yellowjacket invisibility exploited. Imagine all the survivors walking over those rolling green hills towards me, and then their children, and their children's children. Can you imagine that sight? I would be something like a Schindler, a savior of people who were born highly allergic to Yellowjackets. Yes, that is my fantasy. Okay. Now, as good as that fantasy might sound to us all, right? There are some people who claim that, absent a invisibility vaccine that would make us all invisible to Yellowjackets, there's some people who claim we should just kill all of the Yellowjackets. And there are other people who say, no, we can't kill all of the Yellowjackets. They play too important of a role in our ecosystem. Now, what roles do these Yellowjackets supposedly play? Well, the scientists, who I now completely disagree with, say that Yellowjackets are important predators, that they hunt and kill caterpillars, flies, and other insects to feed their own larvae, and that they provide natural pest control for our gardens and agricultural endeavors. These scientists, who are clearly wrong, also say that Yellowjackets are pollinators, meaning they fly around and they eat nectar and that they impregnate different flowers all over the landscape. I also don't believe that. That is poppycock. They also say that wasps play and Yellowjackets play an important role as prey. Right? So they get eaten by other things like birds, small mammals, and other types of insects. I'm not sure I believe that either. It sounds like an outrageous claim. And they also say that some Yellowjackets, they act like they're called decomposers, so they break down organic material. Right, so they crawl around on the ground and they eat plant matter and dead animals, and then they chew it up and they digest it and they shit it out. They make compost. So, again, I disagree with any scientist who says that Yellowjackets have any positive role in our ecosystem or environment. I hate Yellowjackets and I want to kill every single one of them, even though I'm invisible to them. I hate them. Now, if we did that, if we killed every single Yellowjacket, what do these scientists who are wrong say would happen? Well, they say we would lose all of those things I just told you they claim that Yellowjackets do. So we would get an increase in caterpillars, flies, and other types of insects. That we wouldn't have as much pollination. That the food web would be disrupted. And they say this would cause a uncertain ripple effect through the ecosystem. That if we just killed every single Yellowjacket, it would be very, very, very disruptive. And there would be cascading effects that hurt us all. Now, I don't care what these scientists say, they're wrong. We should kill every single Yellowjacket. And look, you know where I'm going with this. Because I am invisible to Yellowjackets and all other ground nesting wasps, I should be the one to do the killing. That's right. I should be paid exorbitant sums of money. I should be exalted as a savior of mankind and be given the mission to eliminate all Yellowjackets and ground nesting wasps from the face of the earth. Now we know that's not going to happen. So I'm fine. I'm invisible to Yellowjackets. I don't have to worry. But for the rest of you uninvisible mortals, you need to be safe around Yellowjackets. You need to be safe around ground nesting wasps. So if you discover a nest, here's what you're going to do. Now listen to me. Go get a piece of pen, a piece of paper, and follow my instructions. The first thing you do when you see a yellowjacket nest or evidence of a yellowjacket nest is stay calm. Don't panic. Walk away slowly. If you can, mark the location, whether it's mentally or drop a piece of paper, whatever. You want to remember where the yellowjacket nest is. Then you want to take steps to keep children and pets away. Okay? And you want to definitely avoid, disturbing the entrance to the nest. So don't mow over it. Don't go and water near it. Don't do anything. Just leave it alone. And then the most important thing you want to do is call a professional pest control person to come in and poison those yellowjackets and ground nesting wasps out of existence. Don't worry about the poison seeping into the ground. Don't worry about if you're on a well, the yellowjacket poison getting into your water. Don't worry about your pets getting the poison on them or your kids. The most important thing is to kill the yellowjackets. Everyone, and a professional will do it. Now, those professionals are probably going to show up in a bee suit because, unlike me, they are not invisible to yellowjackets. Okay? All right, that's it. That's it. So let's answer the question. Am I invisible to yellowjackets? I think we have proven together on this show, my dear listeners, that yes, I, Sawtooth Frank, am invisible to yellowjackets. Okay? All right. So let's wrap it up with some stuff like what am I watching on TV and movies and reading and all of that shit, okay? Shall we? Shall we talk about that just for a moment? A brief moment in time. So on TV, my life has been totally consumed by Love Island USA. My almost 16-year-old daughter, Space Unicorn, got Stomping Jen and I.
I don't want to be an immortal lobster.
To start watching Love Island USA. And I have become addicted. I love it. I love movie night on Love Island USA. I love karaoke night. I love getting pulled for a chat. I love sleeping in the same bed together. I love all of the stuff that makes up Love Island USA. It's so much fun. And it has basically killed every last bit of hope I had for the younger generation, saving us all. But there's a certain amount of freedom and the nihilism that goes along with realizing that we're all fucked. So here's to you, Love Island USA. Let's see, we've also started watching House of the Dragon Season 3. Love that show. I love the dragons in the show. I love the way that they ride around on them and that they fight with them. And I kind of generally love medieval stuff and also Victorian stuff. And I know the Victorian era isn't really medieval, but I feel like they share similar aesthetics somewhat. You know, like the Victorian era is just like a slightly less dirty version of the medieval era, if that makes any sense. So, I'm really enjoying House of the Dragon Season 3. Let's see, the other show we're watching is Beef Season 2, which is a good show. It's made by a South Korean filmmaker / TV maker. Pretty good stuff. That's Beef Season 2. And this show, where the Season 1 was about like two individuals fighting with each other, Season 2 is about these two couples, and the couples are fighting. How do I say this? The individuals inside of the couples are fighting with each other, and then the couples as two separate groups are fighting with each other. So it's like a meta beef. A meta beef. Go figure. Meta beef. I don't know why I'm hung up on that. Meta beef. I think there's something funny about meta beef. I just don't know what it is, because I've been talking for 51 minutes. So, excuse me, I'm going to cough. And I'm going to have a sip of tea. Okay, hold on. Remember I told you a few episodes ago how I was going to stop editing my show to make it faster? I've also stopped editing it for shit like coughing and sipping my tea. I don't give a fuck anymore, okay? Just so you know. And I realize, my dear listener, why should you give a fuck if I don't give a fuck? Well, I'll tell you why. Because we are all people who don't give a fuck together. That's why. We're a community of don't give a fucks. Okay? All right. All right, movies. I've seen a bunch of movies lately. Supergirl. I saw Supergirl. Wasn't as bad as people are saying. I'm kind of a little bit mad that it's flopped. I don't understand why it flopped. Not a horrible movie. But by the time you hear this, I think it may be out of the theaters. But, you know, if you have a little kid in your life who likes superhero shit, go take them to see Supergirl. Throw that movie a little more money. It deserves it. I promise you. Not the best movie I've ever seen, but not the worst either. And the girl, the Supergirl, the woman who plays Supergirl, Millie Alcock, she was in House of the Dragon Season 1. She played young Rhaenyra Targaryen. Great actress. Love her in the Supergirl. Saw another movie in the theater recently. It's called Rose of Nevada. It's like a small independent film about time travel. And it involves like a fishing boat. It was pretty fucking cool. I don't know who made this movie, but I saw it in a small independent theater near me. So it's unlikely to be playing in AMC or Cinemark. You got to hunt it down in a small theater. That's called Rose of Nevada. And then finally, I'm watching on streaming a movie that won a bunch of Academy Awards a few years ago called The Brutalist, which I'm just sort of like meh on. I just don't care for it that much. Let's see, music. What have I been listening to in terms of music? Mostly Taylor Swift. I'm back to listening to a lot of Taylor Swift. Her new album, Confessions of a Showgirl. Really good. Love that album. It's got a bunch of bangers on it. So I've been going back to that. Taylor Swift is kind of like my comfort food. Really love her. It's a shame because my daughter hates Taylor Swift now. She thinks she sold out. She doesn't, my daughter thinks billionaires should not exist. Like, I generally agree billionaires shouldn't exist, that it indicates a structural problem in our economy. But I do think that artists who become billionaires are sort of a different thing, especially musicians. You know, we all can think of music and musicians that we love and how important their work and their songs are to us and how they move us. You know, like, you know, we all gravitate towards different things, and music very much can be the soundtrack to your life and to some people's lives. And people find great meaning in music, I think, sometimes more than other art forms. Right? Like, I told that story about how when I was a kid, I used to love the band U2. I did a whole podcast episode on U2 when I was coming back to this podcast alone by myself without stomping Jen.
I don't want to be an immortal lobster.
And, you know, I remember loving the album The Joshua Tree so much as a teenager. And The Joshua Tree, as an album and as a musical form, is rooted very heavily in imagery that evokes the southwestern United States and parts of the Midwest. And when I went to Vegas a few years ago and was driving out of the city into the desert up into Utah, I rolled down the car windows. I put on U2's The Joshua Tree. I cranked the music and I was in a fucking state of bliss. Right? You can't do that with a movie. You can't do that with a book. You can't do that with a painting. I'm sorry. Music is special. So, when a billionaire results from a musical career, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, and you should be too, because, my dear listener, I'm never wrong. We know that. Right? Okay. All right, that's all I got for you. So let's wrap up the show, shall we? Hold on a sec. Oh, another wonderful cough for you. Enjoy, please. Okay, so you can follow the podcast in a couple of places. Follow it on Facebook. Follow it on Instagram. Follow it on X. Follow it on Blue Sky. I think there's another one. Follow it on TikTok. Okay, follow our Substack, where I sometimes post essays. Feedback. I love feedback. Even when it's negative. Even when the feedback calls me crazy for believing in shadow people. I like the feedback. So you can send me an email, softservepodcast@gmail.com. You can send me a DM through any of those social media platforms I previously referenced. Or whatever you want to do. Okay? Or don't. Don't fucking send me anything. It's fine. I'll probably still show up and do this. Because I have a need. Some kind of deep intrinsic need to do this. I don't know what it is, but here I am. Okay, that's it. We'll see you again in 2 more weeks. I have no idea what the fuck I'm going to talk about. This show was about being invisible to wasps. I thought about that the other day when I was outside fixing my air conditioner. lines and wrapping them up with new insulation. The idea popped into my head. That could be a show. Being invisible to wasps. So I don't know what the next show will be, but I will think of one. If you have an idea for a show, I'll take ideas too. You can send those to me too. Okay? And maybe I'll do a show. One time a friend of mine said I should do an entire podcast on apples, so that's what I did. An entire podcast on apples. All right. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. And remember, if you really like the disclaimer for some fucking crazy reason, I'm going to play that at the very end of the show, after the outro music. And I actually encourage you to listen to my outro music. Not only did I compose the whole thing, it contains a very important message that I never get tired of and I like to listen to and I want people to hear. I listen to it every fucking time I record the show, and I listen to it when I listen to my own show, which I do. I listen to every single episode. So I encourage you, listen to the outro, listen to the words, okay? All right, folks. Be well, take care, and watch out for Yellowjackets and ground nesting wasps.
This world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth, and that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road.
Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy.